Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Today, 5 hacks that really served me well this year and I anticipate serving me well in 2019. And I think if anybody who applies these can really get some benefits. Number one, this is now 2 years in a row, has been the wall calendar. When I can look at my whole year in a glance and rate myself every day, Saturday and Sunday, every day. This has helped me really understand the pattern of the year for me. And everybody thinks, oh, it's a year. It's so much time. And it feels that way, doesn't it? And last year, I really made a huge shift in my business. I went from traveling a lot and giving on-site courses, which I enjoyed doing, but it really took up an enormous amount of time and energy. And the sticking power of, you all been in it, the 2-day class, people get into it, they like it, but what I'd find is they contact me later, the manager, well, everyone kind of slipped back into their old method and there's no real pattern. And that's kind of, and I even made that mistake in my courses. I originally were making them 6 months or 3 months. And now I said, it really takes a year. It takes a year to really change and develop and grow and perfect something, which has really been the motivation for my year to excellence. And which brings up the other point of it not just being about process and strategy and knowing the game and developing the game. It's all about, you got to get mindset in there. You got to get motivation, energy, the whole package, instead of just, teaching people the game that they're playing and how to play it. Because what happens? They don't have the energy to play it, or they keep looking for the easy button. So the value of the calendar has been a lot of things. One, I could map out the key milestones during the year, the release dates of the courses, rating myself on my daily performance, A, B, or C, just like in school. That gave me a little bit of a signal of what causes a bad day. What did I do that really ruined that day? Or, my business is very cyclical, meaning that the summers are almost dead on both sides, on both the training side and the podcast side, because everybody's busy. And I had like a 50% no-show rate on the interviews. And I think people just, put it on their calendar, went on vacation, came back, were overwhelmed, got embarrassed, and never contacted. And I was like, oh, man. So maybe I've got to adjust that. So I've got to adjust the July and August for me. Yours may be completely different. And I know some of you are, well, I'm not on calendar year. Well, you still live a year. And, whether you adjust it to your particular preference or not. And I know less than probably 1% will actually do this. But I think we have to get out of our own heads. And too often we are just in the moment. And if the moment is great, we're happy. If the moment's bad, we're sad. And we're not learning from it. And believe me, I can't tell you the number of summers that I've had to learn that the business comes to a screeching halt, basically. It's, easily down 50, 60%. Because half the people are on vacation, or the other half are blocked by the people on vacation, or they don't feel like doing stuff. And I get it. And what I have to do is adjust that instead of getting frustrated with it, because of course Labor Day comes and it just speeds up all the way to the end of the year and then, shuts down for the holiday season and then comes roaring back all the way to Memorial Day. That's my business. Yours may be different. My point is to mark the calendar. And mine is based a lot on like trade shows, because getting people on podcasts, the money is moving away from trade shows onto online. It's just faster, less expensive, and the audiences are huge. They're 4 times the size of a trade show. And why not reach those people, have it live forever online, and get that audience engaged instead of going and sitting in a booth hoping somebody walks by? So I've got to educate a lot of people about that. Now, the benefits of the wall calendar are just enormous. It's a $20 thing on Amazon. You get a little marker. You can have it, removed from the wall with those 3M stickers that don't stick to the wall, that just pull out. So I'm sure you have a million excuses why you're not doing it. A month at a glance or a quarter at the glance, it's better than nothing, because what we got to do is plan, prevent the things that we know are going to happen and know what's going to go wrong. Like right now, here you're probably listening to this very end of December, early January. Guess what? Next December and January are going to be similar. And how many of us have made that mistake of having our proposals expire at the very last day of the year and we're sweating it out? I can't tell you the number of times that happened to me. And you think you'd learn, but we don't, because the time gap is a year. And we always minimize what could go wrong, and we always suffer from it. That's the nature of being human. So by planning it, let's say you want to take a vacation, a good solid week. You know what the slow weeks are. You know it right now. So now I know now, July and August, I could basically work 2 days a week and get pretty much everything done, as opposed to, and what I'm thinking now is that's the time to build the course material. I'm not going to have as many podcast interviews. I'm not going to have as many one-on-ones. The office hours is at a set date and time. And that has actually worked out really well, having that structure and that pattern. So definitely get some way of viewing your compensation window, which is typically a year. If it's 6 months, that's fine. But also be thinking about, am I working on the things that are going to matter then? At the end of that year, that 6 months, am I going to have the results that I want? Or am I working on something that's going to be another year out? Or am I just working on the shortest term stuff that's a sure thing? We've got to think strategically, and we've got to take action. Number 2 is, motivation's great. And I've been reading David Goggins' book, You Can't Hurt Me, and it's all about motivation. This is a crazy motivated guy. I went through SEAL training 3 times. And I'm going to ask him to be on the show. I'd love to talk to him. Now, this is how we view change, meaning that there's all this willpower and motivation. And if that works for you, congratulations. It works for him. It sometimes works for me. But what really worked for me is what I call minute habits, meaning start by just starting. The objective is not to change or accomplish that change, meaning going through SEAL training. It's to show up to SEAL training. And in sales, this is what we do. We gate everything on what we perceive its effectiveness to be, meaning that, I'm not going to take the course because my people are different. It's a different industry. Well, you can come up with any gate you want of why you won't do something. But if you start, then you'll build a habit. And I'm doubling down on this. This has been a pattern I've been using probably for 3 or 4 years. I pick it up, I drop it off, and but the thing is, it does work if you work it. And if it's just a minute, and if a minute's too long, try a second. But this is the change that we have to have. Instead of, I'll use this analogy. I had this business partner where they would analyze everything, and it wasn't really analyzing. It was just they needed a huge period of time. And it wasn't a day, it wasn't a month. It was usually 6 months to multiple years before they would take action. And I once said, now, if I told you that you would be wealthy if you just moved that pencil from that left side to the right side, would you do it? You go, well, that wouldn't happen. I go, just pretend it would. Would you do it? Well, it wouldn't happen. Okay, I'll give you $20 if you touch your ear. And they still wouldn't do it because they needed to analyze it. And the starting was just so painful, no matter how low the resistance was, that they were stuck in a rut. And clearly that business relationship didn't work out because, the business needs to grow. It needs to change. It needs to adapt. And we do too. But most of us sit around going, that's not the silver bullet. That's it, not it either. And if they try it and it doesn't work 100% of the time, they assume that it is broken versus the approach, or that nothing in sales or nothing with people works 100% of the time. So what we have to do is find something that works most of the time or more than every other thing or the second best thing, and then polish it up. And we as human beings are not good at change. Our brain defends us against change because change is risky. This is ingrained in us. So you can have either motivation or develop habits. Now, if motivation works for you, go for it and keep going for it. And everyone likes to get motivated, but how long does it last? And is it all you? It's more about consistency. And that's the pattern that I want to develop. And I think it's a superpower because you can start small. After, for me, it's probably like 45 days. I find that all of a sudden I start doing the habit automatically. I don't have to check a box anymore. That's the time to move on to a next one. So number 2 was minute habits. And if minute's too long, try a second. And number 3 is delete and block. Now, I was super active on LinkedIn this year. I've probably tripled the audience that I have on LinkedIn. And I used to get hurt and engaged by trolls and haters and just spammers. And eventually I just said, I found out about the block capability on LinkedIn. So now I just delete and blocked. And I actually heard David Goggin, the Navy SEAL, talk about this is what he does. And it's so freeing because what ends up happening is these trolls just troll and, or they spam, they put their content as a comment on my stuff and try and ride the efforts that I'm making. And I just found it incredibly powerful. So if anybody in your life is trolling, meaning it's like they're just putting you down to put themselves up, or they just don't like the situation, or there's just not a match for you, and there's no value. And plus, let's face it, I'll never meet these people. And we have people in our own lives that, that we should really delete and block too. And I tried that too this year. And some of them I undeleted and unblocked. But what it does is it clears your mind. And actually, I had a whole month this year where I deleted and blocked somebody. And I just got so much more done because I didn't have the aggravation and the arguments that I typically get. So think about that at some level of the people that you can. Now, these aren't customers or prospects. These are just people that annoy you, add no value to you, have no reason to be in your life. Delete and block is kind of powerful. Maybe you're not active on social, but instead of engaging them or fighting them, I think the more important thing was being annoyed by them. That, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd find all these crappy comments on my post that have nothing to do with it. They're either competitors or they're just trolls. And instead of engaging them, or they misunderstanding my content, or they get offended by anything. Everyone gets offended by something. And I got millions of examples of them. I shared it on some of the podcasts. The point is, if they're not adding value to you and they're not contributing in some way, and you never want to involve yourself with them, delete and block is a great solution for all of that. Number 4 is don't look for a silver bullet, don't expect a silver bullet, and don't believe a silver bullet. The whole sales area is dominated by this. This is the strategy that all the books take. The old approach doesn't work because of this. This is the new approach. And it's usually some kind of thing masked as a silver bullet. And it's never a whole process. It's never from start to finish. It's always in this unique situation that works for them. And if it works for them, it may work for you in similar situations. I'm not saying don't learn it. What I'm saying is don't think of it as the all-inclusive thing. We're playing the whole game. Now, think of every game that you've ever played. And, I play chess as a hobby. And I got a chess coach this year, which has helped me really become a better sales coach because I watch what he does. And what he does is has me talk through my moves, talks through what I think he's going to move, talks through the different alternatives. Because in sales, like in chess, there's so many options, and it just goes out exponentially with each move. So what we're trying to do is come up with a multi-step move to put ourselves in the best position, instead of the single, what they call a gambit, which is a sequence of moves. And what's happening today in sales is everybody thinks it's a gambit, that if you do this subject line or this call to action or this demo, it will help. It is an element of the game. It is not the game. So do you learn it? Absolutely. Do you study it? Absolutely. But do you think it's the game? You will fail. Why? Because it's not going to work in all these other situations, and it's going to blind you from the real game. Now, this is what happens with beginners in chess, is they learn the gambits, but then the game goes exponentially more complicated, and they don't know what to do. So there's no real overarching strategy. Are you aggressive? Are you willing to exchange pieces? Are you going for dominant positions? Each of these is a strategic approach. And this is kind of what I teach in Closing the Complex Sale, is think about the whole game. People have a hard time with it because they've relied on their personality, they've relied on their customer references, they've relied on their product, they've relied on their technical support, which is all elements of the game and is critical to winning, but it's not going to get you to the next level. It got you to where you are. To get to the next level, you have to look at the whole game and think through it at least 1 to 2 moves in advance, possibly 3. And to do that, you have to plan. So this I've kind of seen, and I kind of apply it to myself, because I really needed to be coachable. I needed to put myself in that role so that I could help other people get into that role. Because the number one thing I face in the courses is people are shy about showing even the simplest piece of their work. They go, well, my market's different. My geography is different. My industry is different. And I'm like, okay, I haven't sold into your space, but show me your work. Maybe there's something I can help you with and get a better result. And people, oh, that means I'll be vulnerable. Yes, you'll be vulnerable. But how else can I help you? How else, or give me the person's name, and I'll tell you how I would approach them. This is the part of sales that we all have to become better at, because to learn, you have to be vulnerable. You have to admit that you can become better. Otherwise, how do you get better? Osmosis? Time? That's not the way. That's the slow boat. That's the 5 or 10 year plan. Let's talk about the 5 or 10 week plan. To do that, you have to say, okay, this is what I did. This is the result I got. And I look at it and I go, okay, I change it to this. And the changes may seem minor, but it goes from looking like it came from a salesperson to looking like it came from a person. And there's a big difference there. So what else do I got here? What else do I got here? Oh, boy. Let's see. Oh, I got so much stuff. Oh, the year to excellence. This I came up with, and I'm going to do it primarily for myself. And in the Closing the Complex Sale course, what I constantly was facing was, okay, the strategy is a big part of it. Executing the strategy, having the energy to execute the strategy, having the mindset to execute the strategy and to change was a critical part. Questioning skills was a critical part. Getting away from pitching is a critical part. These are changes we have to make in our personality. And just telling people that is clearly not enough. We have to work on it, including myself. How do you have the energy to, get up every day and do the work that you know you need to do? How do you have the mindset to stay even keeled and not go too high or too low and lose it and stay a consistent player? That you need. How do you switch from talking to listening? How do you negotiate? How do you use questions to get the other person focused? How do you prevent objections? How do you keep the ball moving? all of this needs to be thought out before you're in front of the customer. We all think that we can wing it, and I'm always shocked when I hear about people liking to wing it. Well, would you let a surgeon wing it on you? Would you let you going into court where there's your life and your freedom, or your money's online, even worse? Would you let your lawyer wing it? No, you'd want to sit down and go, what are you thinking? What do you think they're going to do? What do you think we should do then? What kind of surprises do you think you'll get? We don't want to think about those things because they're scary. We like to think that we're confident. We've been doing this forever, and I've been doing it forever. But, and I still will occasionally get on a call without preparing. And afterwards I go, I should have prepared. I had that perfect opportunity to drop that question. Or I get frustrated that they're not getting what I do, or they're stuck with what worked 10 years ago and they think it's going to work again. And you comfort yourself thinking, oh, they'll be back. And they might be. But if you did the preparation, it would really work for you. So those are my 5 so far. And this was a great year. It really was. And I really appreciate everybody's help. The podcast grew enormously. I think people are getting the difference between what sales really is versus what everybody used to believe it was, and that we have to take a new approach. I think, last year we burnt out on email and voicemail and phone calls. This year it's become pretty apparent to everybody. And the future of sales is going to be about people. And the people who understand that and know how to do it are going to survive. The rest are going to either be order takers, but they're going to be at the bottom feeders, because guess what's happening? Look at the comp plans. The on-target earnings becomes nearly impossible. I say 80% is the new 100%. What they're doing is they're adding on this other 20%. They're over-assigning quota to make it look like you can get your on-target earnings. But it affects us on the bottom end, the middle, and the top, which makes it super hard to make the money that we used to. So the only place it's really going to survive is at the A level, meaning that you are so good that they are scared to death of losing you. If you're not at that level, then you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be working hard, and the amount of administration is going up. It's not going down, because as soon as they automate one thing, another thing comes along that needs tickling every day and takes up our time. And those are the things that our managers are focused on, because it's easier than talking to us as human beings. And here's the bonus one. I used to try and convince people to be salespreneurs, meaning that you got to think like you work for yourself. You got to invest in yourself. You got to own your training, own your tools, your technology, your technique. I'm not going to try and convince you of that. It is here. And if you don't believe it's here, you're going to feel like an order taker. You're going to feel like a drone. And it's okay. You'll be in that B player trap. You'll probably have a job. You'll probably have a decent living, but it's not going to be the way it used to. You're not going to make $500 or $1 million a year. You're going to make $150. And if that's good, it'll be good for maybe a year or two, but then you'll be like, I really worked my butt off and I didn't make more. We've got to get into a position where we're making more. We're making what we want to make. And if you have the employee mentality, you're going to get stuck. And they're all okay with it because the accountants and the algorithms are taking over. The revenue and the commission prevention department is well funded. And we got to be careful now, because I think we're running into what I'm looking at as a placebo recession, meaning that everything's great, unemployment's low, interest rates are low, we're at peace, there's no major wars going on. Yeah, there's a bunch of political upheaval, but all of a sudden there's a sell-off or a correction in the stock market, and everyone's talking about a recession with no reason, meaning that's why I call it a placebo recession. Now, it might be a self-fulfilling recession just because, hey, it's time to have a recession. I don't control it. I'm just giving perspective on it because I see everyone talking about a recession because it gets at people's attention. Now, if it turns into a recession, that means unemployment will go up. People's will not be investing the way they used to. And this is why you have to become even better, because it's going to be harder to make what you made last year. So I appreciate everybody sticking with me. Really appreciate everybody on LinkedIn who shared the content, told a friend about the podcast. I rely on all of you. I wish you the best in 2019. Let me know how I can help. Check out b2brevenue.com for my free ebook. And if you'd like to get on my calendar to talk about the training to see if it's right for you, I've got big plans for it in 2019. It's really going to take it up a notch. Got a big staff helping me to really generate the best content, the best ideas, and do the most one-on-ones I can with you. Hey, so make sure you check out my website at b2brevenue.com and connect up with me on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn. I post videos pretty much every day, little helpful hints and tips, questions, answers, reviews of my podcast episodes. And if you'd like to learn more about the training classes, I've got two. One is starting the conversation, get the meeting. This is pretty much to get into new cold accounts. And the second is closing the complex sale. This is basically once you get in, how do you close that deal? So this is all targeted at business to business selling, not business to consumer. You get a year access to the courses all at once from day one, including all the recorded office hours, which is a hour-long Q&A topic-oriented one-to-many Zoom conference that I do every other week that you're welcome to attend once you sign up for the course. And you get one-on-one coaching from me in a screen share Zoom half-hour meetings, as many as you'd like, as long as I can share the content with the rest of the class. And what I do is I turn the recorder on once we start talking about the generic topic. Before I turn the recorder on and after I turn it off, we can talk about anything that's specific to your particular market and sale that you don't want to share. So you get three things. You get the coaching, you get the Q&A with office hours, you get to hear other people, and you get the full access to the content for 12 months. And you can pay for it either all at once in 12 monthly payments. It's not a membership in that you can cancel. It's a payment plan. So it's not a subscription type thing. It's a payment plan. And the idea is that you really need a year to become great at this. You need a year to really invest in yourself. It pays for itself within a week to a month. As soon as you get a net new deal out of it, you'll be psyched. And I think if you've heard the outro of the other episodes where I talk about or the student shares their experience, you'll see they'll get the results. So it's taught by me. I'm the one running it 100% of the time. And if just look at my background on LinkedIn, I sold for 25 years, pretty much the first 10 sales reps into new companies and new markets, all kinds of technology. For the last 5 years, I've been helping companies get into new accounts, win against their competition and beat them out. So if you're in business-to-business sales, it's a great way to learn what works today. If you want to talk it over, I've got a calendar link on b2brevenue.com under the training tab. So just hit training. There's two links there. One is to schedule a 15-minute Q&A call about the courses, and the other is to the courses themselves. So it's not just video courses, and it goes really deep with tons of real-world examples. We've got like 25 hours of office hours there where it's Q&A. People are asking lots of questions and tons of one-on-ones. So you can go through the whole sales process, see how other people are doing it, and really learn a lot. So check it out if you're interested.